So on this week's episode of Be More Super, the podcast, we've got a great guest. This guy has literally been in everything that I've seen in so many years. Literally, his face keeps popping up. And recently, he's played Paz Vizsla in The Mandalorian. It's Tait Fletcher. Tait, welcome to the show, sir.
What's up, everybody? Great to be here.
Do you know what? So excited. This show, The Mandalorian, literally is I would say, apart from the original Star Wars movies, the best Star Wars series that has been on our screens. I've got to say, I've enjoyed it the most. How crazy has it been for you, for this season, watching it, and obviously the reception that you're getting off the fans and family and friends?
Yeah, it's it's an interesting thing because going into, say, the first season, you don't really know who you're working for, what the magnitude of what your undertaking is. Mm-hmm. It's not until later I get an email that it's from Lucasfilms about how to set up to go to Legacy Effects and get the suit. It wasn't until then that I'm like, oh my God, this is Star Wars, the job I did. What job have I got right now? Because everything is so secretive. Mm. And so to see the arc of it has been incredible. But just to get started, and just to be walking into that world at first and getting this part of Alpha Trawler, which I opened up Mando season 1 with, the first guy that fights Mando in the bar, if anybody recalls. But like that piece was fantastic. A new thing I never done. We're going to learn a language that doesn't exist, that exists, but that this guy that works for George Lucas for all these years wrote, and you're going to learn it, and this is how you're going to deliver your line. And to work with him and to do all that, that was, all of it was enough just at hello, right? And then Filoni's there and Jon Favreau, and they're directing, and it was like, it was awesome. And you're looking at the volume. It was the first time I'd seen the volume. And for your viewers, the volume is the arena, the environment in which it replaces a green screen. A green screen used to be like in Jurassic World, I shoot some kind of a flying dinosaur out of the sky, right? Out of a helicopter. Now we flew around a lot and we're doing that in the air. But then when we shoot the shot, I'm shooting at an X that's on a green screen, right? And then they paint all that in. In this volume, you are inside a video game with your friends. And all of the stuff that is supposed to be invisible that gets painted on the green screen later is happening in real time. Whether it's monsters, spaceships, a spacescape, like that beautiful spacescape that we walked out into where Emily's at the very end of the runway in Boba Fett episode 5. And it creates these beautiful images and this great way to interact with the screen. And so that was the first time that I'd seen that. I saw them line up the functional pathway of the exit of the bar to another wooden walkway that was part of the volume. And it's seamless. You can't see where people would fall off the edge of the stage because they wouldn't know where it would begin and end. And you get caught up. It's a trip. So that was a lot of firsts for me in this show. And then when we really started building into Paz, it was a whole different thing. And I was like, God, this is dope. What a character. And then when he came back for Boba Fett, excited, and then had no idea what was going to happen, except, when I saw all the jumble of helmets at the end of, the last time we would kind of look at Mandalore, I was like, wow, there'll be a reckoning, and season 3 did not disappoint for me as a fan, as a performer, all of it. Like, wow.
Mm. Before we get proper into Mandalorian, I've got to ask, how does someone go from MMA star to action star? What is that? Obviously, I'm sure there's a massive story to it, but in a nutshell, what took you from being in the UFC and being in the MMA to then sharing the screen with some amazing names?
Amazing names, yeah. I don't know. I'm in awe myself. What I can say is what happened. And, and a lot of folks ask because they go, man, I would like to do that. I would like to recreate like what that could be for me or a road like that. And that's all available is all I'll say is that, I feel like you fight against a lot of things that you hear as a kid or don't hear or confidences and whatever it is, no matter how great your life is, there's traumas that you've got to address in order to go through as a functional, confident human, right? That can be helpful, useful, and additive. And And inside of that is like, what makes your heart beat fast? What turns you on? Like what is that? Because I thought a lot about, like, a lot of my friends too, they get offered jobs like, hey, my friend Scotty, his mom called, I can get you in the United Auto Workers Union, which where I'm from is a great job. Like, you get to work benefits, you get to have time off. Like, it's like in poverty stricken areas where that's the best job that you can have. And Scotty said no, and he built a company instead. Right. And I know people like that were like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do, but it's not that. And I'm going to go try this other thing. And that's kind of what I did too, and when I had a real fracture in my life when I was a younger man, and I came to a crossroads where it's like, you're going to have to pick a direction here to go in, and towards positive or not, and here's the ramifications of that. I started thinking about what a purpose would be and what that looks like. I kind of wanted somebody to take the responsibility of that from me, and all that came to me when I'd sit with that question was, have fun. The more you're enjoying life and you're showing the gifts and fruits of the world, here's God's playground. And here's different ways you can use it. Go ahead and be about that. And then you can be useful and purposeful. But to be in the question and to be in the lack of decisiveness or lack of confidence, it's not going to be helpful to anybody. So follow your joy, follow your love strongly, right? If it has a foundational path where you can build and you can access greater skill sets and things like that. So that's kind of what I set out to do. And I started working with at-risk kids that were in this group home that I worked at, and started looking at, different parts of recovery. And that became a huge part of my life. And then inside of that, I started looking at holistic recovery and what that would look like to really take care of my full self. And, I was in my 20s at that time, and I started turning towards fights because I wanted to see. The first thing I did was a group called the Dog Brothers International Stick Fighters. And they're a group, Arlen Sanford, Eric Knaus, and this guy, Mark Denny. They were the triumvirate. Mark was the lawyer that kind of wrote it all up and put it all together. And these guys were real warriors that, fought against each other and go, what would it be like without armor? So these are guys that are like, I want to see the efficacy of my sport without the magic of karate or something where it's just like smoke and mirrors and I'm trying to lord power over somebody else. And let's see if that stick would have crashed. I wanted to come in. And so that's the kind of group I started with. It's a group that says higher consciousness through harder contact. When the consequences are very high, you've got to really be careful about what self you're protecting. And there's a lot of questions that go into that. And that's when I started looking at self-development in that way and going, who are you under these austere conditions? I started to seek those things out. And that's why fighting, combat, grappling was a process, a science that I could look to. I could look to attune my skills, and then I could express it. And so that's kind of how I started there. And then right as I was starting, a submission wrestling tour around the country, I was working as a bouncer. I ran security at this nightclub in Santa Fe. And then Master P, I don't know if you're familiar with Master P, but in America, he's a Southern legend and hero that is out of New Orleans. And he had No Limit Records, which put out a ton of music, saved Snoop Dogg's life at one point, really saved his career and helped him. Great dude. And then he did No Limit Films. And so this film that I got to be in was because those guys came in and said, we need some big white boys for this film that we're doing. And so I went out. That's where I got a SAG card. And I didn't do anything again because it seemed unrealistic. I come with this mindset like, that's not for me. That where I'm from, people don't go and be in the movies. That's not something that can happen. So, and I go, and I only got to work this one job. And everybody I know in Santa Fe has got to work 2 or 3 jobs to keep. I'm just going to do this, and I can train the way I want and whatever. 9 years later, I met that same guy. But about 9 years later, I retired from fighting. I'd had a career through there, and then I started doing bodyguard work again. I started up a gym here in Santa Fe, which still runs, and 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu and Undisputed Fitness. And I had my last fight, and a guy walks in my gym. He goes, I want to train some jiu-jitsu, da-da-da. I heard about you from a friend in LA. Cool. And he's a dude that was in the X Games, and then he was running this movie, and then we start talking, and then he knows the guy 10 years ago that put me in the first one. And I start to run after a career in film, in the stunt world. It just seemed to dovetail my athleticism And then the way I looked, and I had a ability to act, and then I started training that. And so then that became a thing where I would play roles a lot. And so I kind of started building that way, right? Everybody comes in a different way. It doesn't matter how you come in. All you got to do is be around the thing. And if you're, everybody says it's 1,000,000 to 1 shot to do whatever. Sure. Or even more, because I got all the voices, countless voices in my head telling me I can't anyway. Or that say, oh, this girl is more important than my goal, or that I'd rather eat sugar, or whatever the thing is, right? And so I got to kind of counter myself all the time in that and go, okay, I could be tenacious and I could be relentless in my pursuit of a thing. And if I have a discipline to stay consistent towards that thing, what I do know is that most people quit. Mm-hmm. And if you stick around, you will be the one person left out of those 1,000,000 people that somebody says, I need a guy. But you got to love the thing that much to stick around while there's however many years or whatever of rejection. And most people that are young can't handle that at all. They don't have any tenacity at all. They haven't built that yet. And it's hard to know what to fall in love with, because you think if I fall in love with the wrong thing, shit, then I'm stuck. And what I never knew was, like, if you purely fall in love with things and pay attention to that and grow it, you get a mastery of the thing. And also you build the ability of a transferable skill. Right, I can take that to other things and honor them that way too, and that's what my life. And that's follow the next joy into the next joy into the next joy, and they've all dovetailed together. And then people look back at my life and they go, "Wow, how'd you get that career?" And I go, "Career? I was just trying to get the next job, or whatever." And it's not till retrospect that you're like, I built something, because it just feels like, well, I just pounded a hammer and then then I came back and I pounded, and eventually there's a house. Mm-hmm. And I guess that's what it looks like from the outside now. But for me, it's like just trying to do good work and trying to curate my curiosity, my hope, and my excitement about the next projects or about the next endeavor that we create, write, film, whatever.
I mean, what were your biggest challenges going from the octagon to, our screens? I mean, what was the biggest challenge you had to face during that time?
Internally, for me, it was a sense of loyalty, because I'd had years with these guys that I'd trained and fought with, that they were my daily life, and then that's not my daily life anymore. So to not be paying attention to that, because it's a culture where even if I don't have a fight, I'm going to help my friends because they need bodies to be able to work with, and we're all fighting for skill acquisition. And so we all work with each, and so you just don't ever. And so at this time when I was like, no, you need to stop and you need to put energy somewhere else if you want to create more momentum to keep going, and I was just like, God, it just seems disloyal. Like, you just, I'm not going to talk to these guys. And then I'm going to learn. I'm going to meet a bunch of new guys. And it just all seemed, and I was like, you just got to be where you are and go and follow that love. And that's what it's been, and then inside of that, I go, oh, you've just doubled the people that you love in your life that you're walking this road with, and we're all still linked together in a really strong way. There's a way in life where I feel like, oh, there's going to be a loss or scarcity, and it proves to be untrue. It proves to be not accurate. And so, I think all those fears, those internal fears that everybody has to get by. What do I got to do to succeed in life? I got to get out of my own way. I got to curate the garden around me so that whatever I want to attract can grow, and then get out of the way, man. Because when I try to push it around, it doesn't work out very well, right? But I can create the space. My job is to hold the space.
And you definitely do a good job. I mean, looking at IMDB, literally, we could be here all week reading out all your credits. So you mentioned earlier on about just like going after one thing, and then obviously before you knew it. I mean, do you have a plan in place of where you want to be with your career? What you want to achieve, your end goal?
Well, no. But what I do think about is what I want to do the rest of my life, or something like that. What's the next thing that? And I like making movies with my friends. I mean, I like making movies, but to make something that is one of our creations and film it and put it is second to none. And so I'm just kind of starting, with groups like that a lot. Like my original partner, one of my partners in Caveman Coffee is Keith Jardine, and he's been he dove into writing like he dove into training, and so he's got a bunch of awards at little shows. We took a little independent film called El Paso too, and then he's written a feature behind that. We got a couple TV shows, so it's just building those things and building our brand out. And that is kind of what I'm mostly interested in, that as far as film work goes. But I like to film work or whatever it is the thing that it'll keep asking of you, right? And so you got to create boundaries around your own work. And so, what's more important than that to me is how to curate myself and my own balance inside, so that like I can keep deep and powerful, intimate connections with my family and friends that are here. And then outside of that, that's where the strength is, to be able to go and do prod and be gone for 8 months on a project. That's the valuable part, because at the end of it, when you're about to cash your final check, I just think it's the fractures in the relationships that would bother me, not anything that I acquired or not a movie I was in. I've got a SAG award sitting here. It's like, it doesn't mean, it's cool and I'm real proud of it, but it's wallpaper, man. That's not the stuff of life, for me. Yeah. And I think that's why I want to do that with my friends, is because those are people I love. It's like a double win,
Yeah. You've done quite a lot of stunt work, and then obviously acting. Is stunts something that you want to focus more on than acting, or is it going towards the acting side and less stunts?
Stunts are what brought me to the party, right? And lived in it for a decade or whatever. And it was a good dovetail for me, something I'm super proud of, super proud to be a part of the stunt community. And also, the stunt people are the people that usually are like, hey, because the directors, the producers are like, we need a guy that can move and that can also act and that is big yet. And then my name goes somewhere, right? It's like, that's how it happened. That's a community that I owe my career to. If there's a career here, is guys like that. And so, it's like fighting, right? The things are, you ever see a guy that is like a 50-year-old dude hitting on 20-year-olds or something? It's a bad look. You're a creep, man. Whatever, right? I'm sorry that you haven't developed to whatever the thing is, right? But it's like anybody trying to live in the old era of their life. These eras come and go, I'm finding, as I age. There's an era where it's appropriate for me to be fighting. And then there's an era you age out of that. And it's the same thing, I think, with stunt work. And a lot of guys with stunt work go on the path of stunt coordinator, and then they become a second unit director, and then maybe they can become a director. But that doesn't happen a whole lot. Examples of that are Dave Leach and Chad Stahelski at 8711 with John Wick and Deadpool and things like that. But those are high-level stunt guys that followed this path and then grabbed this directorship by the horn. And they're the first story of that, of breaking ceilings like that for stunt people, really. And so there's that that's out there, but I'm not the guy for that. There's people with way more experience. Part of the thing, if I were going to go into being a stunt coordinator or something, would be, I want everybody to be ultimately safe to the highest degree possible. And then ask myself, am I the guy for that, or do I just want a job? Well, I wouldn't be the best guy for that. I'm not adept enough at water, at fire, at aerial height work, at all the things, at rigging, in order to be able to maintain that. Yeah, every person that is out here is safe. I know, and I wouldn't. And so I don't, I don't do that. And I don't have an interest in that way either. I like to be in the action. I like riding horses, shooting guns, and jumping out of windows and all that. But I've got to curtail that. Because what I really like is these arcs, or what I really like is the meat of acting. What I really like is to be able to express emotion in that way. And so the difference with acting and stunt work in that way is like, you're kind of you're in one gear for stunt work. And it's like, wah! And you're, fuck, let's go. Right. Yeah. And then it's over. It's this big, and then smoke. And there's not that. With acting, you can draw, you can pull, you can, and to have a character like Paz, to have him be kind of one-dimensional, seemingly, and then to come through this whole art. What a thing to carry. And so like that turns me on in a way like nothing else does. And yeah, that's what I enjoy.
But who knows?
But I like I want to play Wrecker, or whatever. I like that
Yeah.
character, right? I like characters.
But this is a wonderful thing about the world now of Star Wars, is that it's branching out so much, and they are listening to the fans, and that's what matters. Do you know what I mean? They're making all the fans so happy at the moment. But what I was going to say is maybe one of your end goals is to be to win an Oscar for stunts. One day.
I just wrote a really long post about how the Oscars should be ashamed of themselves because they don't recognize stunts at all. Every other trade is recognized, and they treat people as if they're invisible, as if it's some other year other than 2023, and that these people that die, that hurt themselves, that give their all, that break themselves over and over again, that come to work hurt in ways that, everybody's up against it, whether you're a grip, electrician, wardrobe, everybody is. But that stunt world is just not recognized. I won't say they give the most, everybody gives a lot, but they give a lot, man, and they're pretended like they're invisible. And it's a black eye on the fucking film world. And in this caste system of the film world, that's something that they ought to, where people speak of equity everywhere, it's like, well, let's talk about what that really would look like. Let's talk about what it would be like if we acknowledged what everybody did. Yeah. And I look forward to that day coming, but I'm going to be loud and kind of a loudmouth about it till then,
Well, I've had quite a few stunt coordinators on the show, and one of them said that the Oscar people said that they'll recognize an action designer or something along those lines, but they can't win anything. Which for me, it's
because why? Why is that?
Yeah, exactly.
When you're throwing a party, I'm Oscar throwing a party. I get to serve what I want. I get to curate the discussion of what I want. Is it written in the Bible or from some godly figure that no stunts must not be acknowledged in any way that is functional? That's they make it sound like magic. It's like imperialism where you're not supposed to question that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It makes zero sense.
The way I look at it is like having membership to a golf club, but not actually ever being able to play a game of golf. Do you know what I mean? Right. Because you're not good enough. And
you can come cut the lawn.
Yeah.
You can come and make it for everybody else. You can be in the trailer. You're going to be in the trailer actually because the trailer sells the movie. You're going to be in all the heart-ending actions, but we're not going to talk about you.
Yeah. It's just ridiculous because I know you've got the Taurus Awards, and Vic Armstrong was saying previously how disappointed he was with the Oscars, and maybe in the future. But again, I think the Oscars aren't as meaningful as they used to be in my eyes. But that could be because of diversity and inclusion. But let's talk about your wonderful work on Mandalorian, because literally I've got to say your death in season 3 that just is being shown is probably one of the greatest scenes I've ever seen. I know that there's going to be people shouting at the screens, and what a way to go. What a way to go. So let's start at the beginning. So you played Alpha Trawler at the beginning, and you spoke, obviously, I think it's called Galactic Basic. Can you remember any of it at all?
Yeah, like a Chutamando. I'd have to look at it again, but it was great, and it flows, and it's like, it was amazing. It was an amazing thing. It would be an easy one to pick up, I think.
So how did it all come about to you? Did you get an invite to a call? Was it through someone that you knew? How did the whole project fall on your lap?
In the beginning, I just got an email that you have an audition at this address, and so I go and I prepare for the audition, and it's all in English. I don't have Hatiz in front of me, and so I go in, and when you go in these auditions, it's like, you don't know if there's nerves, there's this, there's that. I remember one time I went in and, I'm supposed to, stab this guy or something in a prison scene. And the guy I'm supposed to stab is like a 75-year-old woman that's the reader that's on the other side of the camera. So there's, an audition, it can throw you off in a lot of ways. They're not easy to do. It's a whole nother skill set to kind of divorce yourself from the reality of where you are and to instantly now in 40 seconds be here in this other place and give a performance. And so I'm still not very good at that, but that's what you're up against. There's all that. And so I go in and I see the usual suspects there. I see one of the guys that, doubles Ben Affleck, and I see my friend Esteban. And, the big guys that can act, they come in the room and we all know each other. And so I read it once and the guy was like, God damn, I love that. And I go, okay, cool. He goes, do you want to do another? I think, well, we're good. But I go, well, let's do another just in case. Like, just because I don't know, and I don't know if he's right, right? Because he's looking at it and then he's going to send it to people. And it doesn't matter if he likes it or not, if they think it's got, and so I want to have choices. And so I do it again anyway, and I leave and I don't think about it again because kind of that's the way it is. I used to get into a place, I think is a common place to get, where you feel like, I got to get this job. I got to nail this audition, right? And then there's some nerves in there that maybe don't need to be. And it perverts the outcome a little bit. And so I kind of learned to just throw it away. I'm going to go do it. The audition is the work, and I get to practice, and I'm in the practice, and that's all I want to be is in the practice. I want to be in the conversation. I don't want to say I'm an actor and not be doing actor shit every day. If I'm not practicing my craft, I'm not the thing that I'm saying I am. I'm in a disassociative reality with what I believe is happening and what I'm actually doing with my footwork, right? And so whatever I can be to be in the process, I dig that, and I leave it at that. Then I get the call, and they say, you got a job. And I go, right on. And then a couple days later, I get an email just after I get this next call that says, hey, Favreau saw your audition tape, and he wants you to play this other character. And I go, Favreau saw? God damn, John Favreau saw my audition? I was like, wow. And then the emails from Lucasfilms. And I go, oh, man. And they say, go to Legacy Effects. And so I go there, and what a beautiful studio that is. I mean, you walk in, and these gracious artists around, and they look like mad scientists, a lot of them. And there's the Shape of Water creature that meets you that's 8 feet high, and you walk in, and, modern warfare guys are coming out, kitted up out of the ceiling with machine guns, rappelling down. And there's Darth Vader and 3 stormtroopers that are coming down the hallway, and they're all, 9-10 feet up. I mean, it's insane. And people carving, like, here's a great big dinosaur foot carving out of wax. I mean, yeah, it was magic. And so I go in and they start measuring, and we don't know what we're doing. They kind of know what they're doing because they're building the suit, but they don't know the story. They don't know what the thing is called. I remember on my Under Armour that I would wear underneath all the stuff, just my skins, we just kept them in a Ziploc bag. And same ones that we had when we built it, then that were in season 3. At season 3, I noticed it just says heavy bounty hunter. And that's as much as anybody knew about my character, It's like, is he Boba Fett? Is he, it was just an unknown. And so then, and then I go to set, after several fittings, like it took a while to build. And we filmed the Alpha Trawler scene first, and that was just phenomenal. One of the most beautiful, carefree days on set I ever had. That it was magic for me. It was really special because it was a thing where it's like, you're carrying this scene in a lot of ways. This is, this begins with you. It's your motion through it. It's a quick thing with Mando where and to carry, you can feel it when you carry more weight, when it's more consequential. And I like to work. It feels good to carry weight for me. And I like to see where I can go. I like to see my edges. That's what the fighting was. I want to see my edges. Who are you under these circumstances? And so, yeah, that's kind of what that was like for me. And then when I walked out, the next time when we filmed for Paz, and all the execs are there, and they're like, yeah, and after this, you're going to go and you're going to strike a bunch of poses for the toys. Is that cool? And I was like, yeah, what are we doing right now? Like all these Disney execs are like, this is insane. And then it got better. Then it melted into like a magical honey butter, like beautiful experience. Like when I go down and I see the forge and I'm checking out the atmosphere, how it looks, everything. And it's the first time I see Emily come in. And to watch her come in this golden brown and the fur and the helmet, and I was like, It's breathtaking, man. It was like every bit of the show was like that. You turn a corner and you're having a moment like that. It was just like, it was beautiful. Yeah.
And was you a Star Wars? And this is probably a silly question. Was you a Star Wars fan before all of this?
Saw it in the theater in Petoskey, Michigan, when I was, 8 years old or 9 years old or whatever, and I have a vague memory of waiting outside. I don't really remember the movie a lot, but I remember watching it 50 times after that. And for I think for people like me that been around 5 decades, you're in that where people ask me, what are your favorite Star Wars movies? Your favorite 3? And I'm like, you're begging. It's the first 3. It's not
what I always say.
If you're our age, that's not up for question. Because they did it with miniatures, because there's none of the funniness when they're trying new technology. And those were the original things that gave the ethos of the mythology of the Jedi, of Yoda, of these good forces of darkness and light, and inside your heart, and then also inside in this meta wit. Really tremendous. And so for me, those marked me in a lot of ways. And I was a huge fan. And those are the first times I saw an action figure. I'd never seen an action figure before. They didn't have those. It'd be hard if you were born in 2000 or something like that to go, they didn't have action figures. It's like, we didn't have anything like that, right? Like Luke and Chewbacca and Han. Those are the first action figures I ever saw in my life. A stormtrooper that we lit on fire. I never knew it. You can't be probably 50 years old and be a fan of the dark side. It's like you're trained into this good. And I didn't know until a couple of years ago when I see the Forerunners in America, they look like a stormtrooper, the white ones. And then people put stormtrooper stickers on the back. And I go, there's fans of the Empire? I was shocked. I didn't know. I was like, this is so weird. But and then I just think, these different perspectives that you're marked with when you grow up, they change your worldview in ways that maybe don't make sense, except if you look at it through that only specific scope, right?
And you know what's crazy? I can remember being a kid playing with my massive Millennium Falcon and all the figures, and then thinking now as an adult, if only I just kept them all pristine in boxes, that would pay off my mortgage.
I did with the special edition that my friend at Sideshow's Toys sent me, and it was the big special limited edition. They didn't run it anymore, and he sends me one, and had a bad brain injury in 2019, and so I was in a treatment center called BrainTreatmentCenter.com, which we're shooting magnets in my head, and we're filming at the same time. I'm doing a lot, and I'm just trying to hold it together, and I get this gift. And I don't have connection because I've been isolated because of the brain injury, and I've just been, I've been not myself. And I see my friend Nicely and his kids, and he's got these 2 little boys, and one of them's got on a Mandalorian backpack. I go, oh shit! I go, Nicely, I've got a thing for you, man. And I go and I get this thing, and I give it to him. I said, this is for your boys. And I had no idea how special it was, right? And then I go, oh shit, I got to get pictures of that too. And he sends me pictures of his boys playing with it. They've torn it apart and they got it and they're playing with it, and as you should. But I had no idea about any of that. So you say if only I'd have kept the Land Cruiser or the Land Speeder that was pristine. Yeah.
So we're just taking a quick break for a message from our sponsors. So would you like to take home a piece of film history or TV history into your own home? Find your own piece of magic with Prop Store, the world's leading auctioneers of film props, costumes, and more. So check out propstore.com or follow the link in the description of this video. And while you're doing that, why don't you use our special code? Our special code will give you 10% off anything in the Buy Now section. And the code is easy to remember. It's Brian10. That's BRYAN 10, and it's just above the finger, just here. Use that at the checkout to get your 10% off. That's propstore.com.
I always used them.
There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. A funny story though. I was married to my wife for 3 years, and it wasn't until 3 years after I was married to her that she mentioned in passing conversation that a great auntie was in Star Wars, the original.
What?
She played, do you know the character in the cantina scene, the big bat the bat.
In the opening scene when they come in and Han Solo dusts that guy?
Yes.
Throw him under the table?
Yeah. So her great auntie played Gabe, the bat head person. Yeah. And I was like, 3 years it took in passing conversation to say, oh yeah, she was in there, and we got all the photos and everything like that. It's crazy, it really is. But let's talk about, obviously, your armor. You said that you got it all fitted. How comfortable was it? And did you manage to liberate any pieces from the set?
What do I have? None of my armor. They're very careful with that as it is. And that's what was nice too. I was like, this armor is so expensive that they're going to keep me safe. Like, I knew I wasn't going to get like ratcheted through a wall or something. I was like, because this is an expensive suit. They build it from, the floor up, measuring your how big your hand, what's the space around, like everything. And so, when I had doubles too, it was like they need to be built a certain way to be able to fit that. You know what I mean? And so there's a couple guys that wore that suit with me that did a couple of scenes too that was really great to share it with. And Rich Citrone also, he was a dude that doubles Batman, and he was a dude that helped me out with the fight scene with Mando with the dark
Richard Citrone has actually been on the show. I've chatted to him for Batman. Awesome guy. Yeah. Lovely man.
Yeah, I got to fight him for on The Accountant. He and I had a scrap. At any rate, when people say, how heavy is that suit? I'm like, well, it depends on what time of the day you ask me. Early on, it's not so bad. But as all the cosplayers and everybody will know, that it's like erosion. It wears on you after time, and which isn't super bad, except there's, it's uncomfortable. There's muscular fatigue and all that and pain around it. But you've got to perform under that. And so that became the thing, is how do you stay fresh it's all like your shoulders are in a kind of gauntlet. So it's kind of hard to even move. You're stuck, you're kind of frozen. And then you're bound, your torso is bound to your hips, are bound to your knees, are bound to your ankles, and it all kind of pulls down, and you have to be in this expressed position all the time. And then if you're going to move, you want to move without limitations of the suit. I need to move definitively and strongly as Paz. Like, this is how this is the integrity of the character. And so, I just think about that. Every moment I could get the suit off, I would. And a few times a day, if we could go and take breaks, and I would go and I would just get, like, I've got a ball that attaches to my head that I box with, and then I've got rubber bands I just pull apart, and I would try to pump as much blood as I could into my shoulders to keep them so I could just keep moving. And in that motion is a lot of freedom in that. And so when we're really in the scene and moving, I don't notice the suit. I don't know. It's part of me in that way. And then when I'm sitting is when it seems to be like, there was a scene where I'm just standing. I have the backpack on, the gun, I'm full kitted up, and I'm like, I'm ready. We could go ahead and be done with the scene right now. Like, it was all of it, because the backpack's off 18 inches off my back, so it's weighted back, and then the gun is just as heavy as all that, and it's on the side. Now you're twisted and back, and you're trying to torque yourself up to fight upright just to stand straight. And so like I said, motion is sometimes easier in some ways. You can hide a lot of that,
but it looks so damn cool. It really, really does. Obviously you're the guy in the suit doing all the action, along with some other individuals as well. Obviously John does the voice of Paz. Was that always intended? Because I'm not being funny, your voice suits Paz. So, sure. Is there, what was the decision behind that?
Well, not being a producer, I can't be certain, because I'm not in on all the conversations. A lot of people are shocked. They're like, I thought you would have fought those guys at the end better. I'm like, I thought you would understand I didn't write this. But anyway, my understanding of it is that I voiced a character. and there's an episode in between that voice and then Paz's voice. And I think the character is written, created by John with a strong affinity to Paz Vizsla, right?
Mm.
And he wanted to play the character, I think, and just, I mean, his responsibility, his duties and all that, like make it not an option. And so I got to come in and carry the weight of it. And when I found out, because I go in, people ask me this a lot. And when I go in and do a job, I go in and do the job. I'd never played in like a suit before per se, like this, where you're hidden this way.
Mm.
But I go do the whole bit, and I don't know what happens till later. It was a shock to me when my mom and I are at the theater, and we're at the premiere, and I go, oh, that sounds like John, right? Like, it was weird for me at first, and I clicked. I go, oh, okay. And then, we watched it out, and I went downstairs and going down the bathroom before we take off, and then I run into John, and he goes, oh, hey, so how'd you like playing my body? And I go, great, dude, just glad to be at the party, you know what I mean? And he says, cool, we'll do it again maybe next year or something. I go, whatever you need, man, I'm around, right on. And he goes, okay, we'll talk more. And so then I go, and and then later he's like, and I don't know if people ask him or what happens, but he was like, we couldn't use your voice. You just were the first voice. I go, I'm not tripping about it. And then people think something changed in the mechanics. I don't know. What's your opinion, Brian? Whose voice is season 3? Because it doesn't sound like that. And so all I know is I do all the stuff, and then I don't know what happens in post.
Well, well, a lot happens in post, so I suppose it's completely out of your hands, isn't it?
Right.
Mm.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously, we see that epic moment at the end of season 3. I mean, how far in advance do you know the storyline of each season? Do you know the whole season, or is it episode by episode?
Well, I would say I think it depends on who you are and what character, just what you're up to. What happened for me was really dope and kind of wild. That, like, John comes up the first day I'm at work on season 3, and he says, so, and he names a couple movies. I don't know if you're this or that, but Paz is this is kind of how he's going, and he's gonna smash the door, make sure everybody escapes, and then he's gonna sacrifice himself in this epic battle kind of thing. And I was like, is there a back to tank or something? So I knew the very first day I was there, I was like, but the other thing that I knew is that it was going to be a powerful manifestation of this character, this energy that was out there. Like, that was the first time, because like I said, I knew how many episodes I was going to be in, but I didn't know everything about them until after I started getting scripts and I was on set for a minute. But it was incredible, man. I mean, what a thing. And so walking through it with that excitement too, and not, the whole thing, holding it this whole time and going, yeah, here's what this is. And it's heavy, and I'm going to just hold on to it here myself for the next year and a half or whatever. But yeah, I knew the whole ride. And then it got more and more exciting as we were rolling. And then that final night was the days before that, when we went down to where the forge was, and Axe is like, you used to live here. And I'm like, you lived here? Or what, and the gunfights that we had, and Axe going off, and then running down in there, and when we're all trapped, like, that standoff is one of my favorite scenes as far as tension and as far as like what was going on with all the people in the room, all the stunt people, Katie, everybody that was back with us. And it was just such a strong effort and so action packed, I think. It's a ton of stunt people that are there. There's 20 people or whatever. And then all outside of the others are all guys that are flying in that are stunt. And so there's this camaraderie that is there, and this energy that's like, like, let's go. And it's like you're carrying that through that next couple days of shooting, and it's tremendous.
I mean, that scene when the three of them come on, I think I've got a picture here, and that music, that score changes, and literally, honestly, the hairs at the back of your head stand up, and it's just fantastic. But the thing is, your character is loved by so many people. I mean, from the moment that you was fighting there with Din in the Book of Boba Fett, and then obviously going, making friends, and obviously your son and everything like that. I mean, your story arc is just fantastic. So now the question is, who's going to take on your son, in it, and there are theories around that. But overall, I mean, what has been your greatest moment, your crowning moment of playing Paz?
I don't know. Maybe it hasn't happened yet. I'm not sure. I know this. I know that I'm super proud of the way that we put a cap on it and where it is. And I love the idea that, that the idea that maybe what Paz leaves is way greater than his presence. That could be this kind of focalization of like, here's a dude that died with his ideals for his ideals, and that he's willing to lay it out for. And I think that is so beautiful for Heavy, because he is unchanged. He is unchanged throughout the whole thing, and that was the great thing, that the fans got to get a trick played on themselves. They got to think, this salty guy that's not super cool to my hero, Din. The show is called The Mandalorian. Why is this guy acting like, there's that kind of feeling about it. And my relationship with Emily in that is one of my proudest. I mean, me as almost an emissary for what her mind is about the traditional ideals of Mandalore. And then I am the expression that holds the line for that. And so when Din comes in and here's this guy that's got no lineage, he's just wandering around, and he's got her armor on, and he's got stuff that's from an Imperial smelter, and I'm going to grab him and go, what's what? Because that's what Emily would want to, like, what's going on? Like, because if you're going to come into a place with high consequences of damage, extermination, death at the next door front, well, the guy at the door is going to praise you a little bit, and he's going to ask you some questions about who are you and why are you here? And what I think that Heavy does through that is he holds the line for what Mandalore is. These are the ideals of our fathers. These are the shoulders we stand on. This matters. It matters. And if you don't know that it matters, then move on. And that's kind of his attitude. But it's not Emily's attitude as well. Like I am the expression of that. And then in Boba Fett, it's the same thing when he goes and he grabs the Darksaber. Why? Because all he knows is that Din doesn't belong to it. And at least his family has a lineage to it. And maybe this is best, it's better he holds it for the time for Mandalore, all that. And that goes through. And that all culminates to the point where he's talking in the coven. And when I come out and I grab the hammer from Emily, and that whole thing that happens, and the turn that happens, and the idea that, like, yes, I've been holding this space where change is coming and it's inevitable. But I have to hold the line so that we can see that it's a sustainable action that we go forward with, not something that's just going to be the fresh new idea that falls apart. Because this is important. And now, and then pulling in Katie and pulling in Din and going, and now our unity is more important than all of that. And let's go forward like this. And I love that. I love that he's unchanged through the whole thing, but everybody feels super differently about him from the beginning to end, right?
Yeah. I mean, that story arc is amazing.
And you get prejudiced because Din's wonderful and Grogu's cute. And it's like, no, people need to have a higher standard. And I think that's the space that Heavy held. He's like, we have standards here, and y'all are going to abide.
It's awesome character. Do you know what? When I first saw him on screen, because I'm a big guy, I've never really got into cosplay. And then I saw him and I thought, yes, he's the guy that I can go cosplay finally, because I'm not the size for Superman. I'm not the size for Batman, but Paz Vizsla, who knows, one day. So talking about cosplay, obviously now, because you're officially part of this Star Wars world, you'll always be remembered, for now and for future things that I'm sure you'll be doing. Conventions. Have you got any plans on coming over to the UK to do any more conventions or any conventions in the future?
I would love to. Wherever anybody asks, I would love to book that. If it's reasonable and looks good. There's something happening in September, I think, in England. Maybe a show is it Showmasters that does or something like that. And I don't know. I don't know what are great shows, what are not show but I'm eager to go. I'm supposed to go to Brussels on I think the 21st of next month, and I'll be at Fort Myers on the 5th and 6th of May. So little stuff's coming in, and I'd love to do more of that.
Well, you talk about Showmasters. I think I'm right in saying Jason that runs Showmasters. He also looks after the Star Wars archive at Elstree. And they've actually got the handwritten first draft script of Star Wars that was handwritten by George Lucas.
Wow.
So if you do come over, you'd have to you've got to connect with Jason at Elstree, because the stuff he's got is just incredible. But he runs it.
I need to, if I'm fortunate enough that stuff comes to pass, I need to carve days out before and after, because to me, to be in Europe, to be able to go to England, I went there once on a bodyguard trip. I got to Heathrow, I walked to Terminal 5, and then I got back on the plane to LAX. That was my trip to London, right? I need to go and walk those streets, man. I need to go to,
Definitely. So apart from being an action star, in Star Wars and on our screens in so many other projects, you're also, I don't know how to describe this, a coffee entrepreneur. So I'm going to bring up a logo here of Caveman Coffee Company. If you could tell us a bit about the company and what it's all about, I'd love to know, because I'm a massive coffee fiend. I really am.
Well, about 10 years ago or so. So as I said, my pal Keith Jardine and I, we've been partners for a long time, just in the fight world and everything, and then in the film world. And we love coffee. We drink it maniacally, and I always have for the last almost 30 years. I've just been a real fan, and we got really into nutrition, and we started doing some nutrition talks, like at different gyms and stuff like that, and kind of giving back to guys that were coming behind us, because when we were athletes, it wasn't like there was a lot of guys talking about nutrition. There wasn't. All through the 90s, guys were giving maltodextrin and carb loaders. Like, people didn't know anything. The whole industry was geared to give people diabetes, and so it's like we started talking about these things, and we started this company, and we started this tag, pirate life. Like, you've got to outthink your consumers. You got to pirate your life back, because your attention is being stolen, and it's directing you in ways that are nefarious and deleterious to your body. And you need to be able to maintain your own autonomy in that. And if you give yourself away and you don't have advocacy for yourself, then you won't. And they'll take it from you. It's kind of like the Constitution doesn't matter to you if you don't know what the Constitution says. It's like these things matter to be invested in the independence of our own life. And so it kind of came out with this weird kind of rebellious kind of ethos about how I felt about big corporations and the world, Eddie. It's like, here's individuals and here's a corporatocracy that smashes and throws them through the thresher to bleed, not unlike any other time when power took over the workforce anywhere in the world ever. Right? And so that kind of is like where pirate life comes from with Caveman. Caveman, we got into Lacey Mackey, my girlfriend at the time. She's running around right now. Actually just got done with the European tour with Bert Kreischer. Now she's in Australia, and she was just in New Zealand. She's traveling all over doing that. So she's always been a trainer. Used to train Tom Cruise back in the day. Bryce Howard is one of her, the whole thing. And so she lives in Santa Fe too. And we, fell in love here and went on and made things. And me and Keith had been partners. And so we started Caveman and went running it all over the place, and started up coffee shops in New York City and in LA and here in Santa Fe. And then COVID smashes, and we have to regroup everything. And so we're all direct to consumer. We're one of the first to the party with Nitro Cold Brew. It's an actual cold brewed coffee. The difference of cold brew and hot brew is, in a hot brew, you get a bitterness, which I like in some ways. But a lot of people just make a hot brew and then they throw it over a cold plate and they put it in a can. It's not a cold brew. A cold brew, this coffee is different in the way that it's a single origin coffee that we hand pick and that is then curated in such a way that you take cold water and expose it to the bean. And that's what draws it over the course of like 16 or 18 hours. And so there's no bitterness to it. It's a different kind of take from it. It's a higher caffeine, higher chlorogenic acid. All the nutrients of the bean are intact because heat's not there. It's kind of like when you cook your vegetables, that all the vitamin C leaches out of it and the fruit, whatever, right? And so the same kind of thing here. It's like people talk. Well, anyway, that's about the nitro. It's super smooth, super good, and all that. And people talk about this.
I've never tried cold brew coffee. Never.
Yeah.
Literally, I normally have my V60 dripper, and that's how I make my coffee. But I've never tried cold brew. I wanted to mention as well that you've got a competition as well from your Instagram. I don't know if this is still going.
It is. We're gonna pick a draw. We're gonna pick a drawing this weekend. We're gonna. So you can go ahead and I've got these Paz Vizsla Funkos. And so we're giving away a Paz Vizsla Funko.
There you go.
And all you got to do to enter is follow the site Caveman Coffee, tag a friend in the comments, and report this picture for a chance to win. And so we'll go ahead and pick a drawing in a couple days. We've been doing it since I went to La Mole at this last convention in Mexico. And excited. I'm going to probably give away a couple of these in the next few days.
And I've already had a look on the website for Caveman Coffee, and you do some amazing coffees. The Mando roast as well,
Yes.
which looks lovely, as well as a lot of apparel and hats and cups and mugs and everything like that. Currently, is it international? Because I tried to buy some stuff and I couldn't get any stuff sent to the UK.
And that was a thing that happened also during COVID, is all the shipping changed and altered, and we just couldn't afford it. It ended up even being to Canada like an extra $50 to ship something, and so we just
really?
didn't. Yeah, it was, and the weight of the cans.
Yeah.
And so in America and California and different places, we have some pretty good shipping, but we've been trying to problem solve a lot of that.
So the solution is to move to the States,
Well, that,
just to get my coffee.
solution.
Sorry?
Here's the other solution: is get some peat bags, grind your coffee finely, throw in, I don't know, maybe 5 bags that have like a cup of coffee in each of them, float them in a big thermos, like a big, some kind of water jug or something that you can hold like 3 gallons in or 5 gallons in, and then put cold ice water in and let that soak for, I don't know, 20 hours or something like that. And you're going to have the most delicious cold brew at your house that you can just tap.
Oh, wow.
Great. And you can do it with whatever bean you want. You know, like if you really like that fruity taste or something like that, you can get one of those African beans that really speaks to that or something like that. If you don't want a darker, all of it in between. And and that's what started getting fun for us. That's how we started brewing coffee. Is like, I go, ooh, I'll do cold brew like this. I'll do cold brew like, and so we all started running down that road, and then we made a company, and here we are.
So you're keeping yourself extremely busy. When you're not on screen, you're off screen being an entrepreneur and keeping healthy and everything. I've just got a few more questions before we bid farewell. I mean, obviously you've faced some many big names in the way of body and name, like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Keanu Reeves and Denzel Washington. I mean, in real life, which one of those could you take on in real life? I mean, because the thing is, it's one thing being a hard man on screen, but which one do you reckon would be the hardest to take on?
Hardest is a good way to say it. I would say, well, 100% with no joke, what would be hardest would be Keanu, because I know Keanu is well trained, and I know guys he trains with, and so he's in actual movement. He has actual cardiovascular health. He's an athlete in that way, in a way that is more advanced than I mean, Denzel's a little older and he boxes. He for real boxes. But yeah, I mean, it would be the three of them, and they would have to call friends. Good luck, guys. It's not happening. You know what I mean? They call me to be who's the guy that would be like, oh, that dude is gnarly, and there's no way that. And they're like, yeah, we want a hero to kill that guy. Will he do that for money? And then I go, yeah, I'll do it for money. Yeah.
To be honest, for me, it's Denzel, because he always scares hell out of me in everything he's been in, and obviously the Hurricane that he was in, that he was fantastic as well. So this is the last.
I feel like Denzel could do this. Denzel would be the guy out of that he could talk just so cold and get into your head. So he could be like in Silence of the Lambs, where he talks the dude into killing himself. Denzel, he could just be sitting in a chair and he could talk you into walking off the building or something. That guy is he's something else, man. What a master. I mean, that's the thing. To be able to work with guys like that, to be able to work with Dwayne, to be able to see the excellence of Keanu. It's like, these are the things you say, oh, he's busy, he's doing a lot of stuff. It's like, those guys are too. And that's the thing, is that I know the reason I do it is because I'm a habitual animal. And if I habitually take breaks and let the tension off my life, I'll let the tension off my whole life. But if I keep things moving and I keep things turning, and I keep obligations to people, and I keep going forward with that, it's like my life feels better. It feels less dislocated, because it's like I'm not trying to catch something that's flying by. I'm here with everything, and it feels calmer. And in that busyness, it feels more straightforward. Maybe something like that.
I mean, Denzel, I've got to say, just backtracking. One thing that he says that I've quoted to this day, one of the wisest words, is that if you don't, if you don't read the news, you're uninformed. If you read the news, you're misinformed. Yeah. And he said that once in an interview, and I use that all the time. He's a very intelligent man, and it's great to see you as well on screen, toe to toe. But if you could go back in time to yourself as you was leaving the MMA, knowing what you know now, what piece of advice would you give yourself on this journey that you've been on?
I think it's just the thing to go fully. I mean, it's like, I don't know how to get anywhere except by committing, right? And commitment is an action. I can decide and I can ruminate about it. So I've just always gone and I go, okay, it's over there, huh? The thing that, I want to make a coffee, a gym, I want to fight, I want to act. It's over there. So I throw my hat over the fence, and then I got to go get my hat. And I don't know any other way to do it except, it's like I burn the boats, baby, let's go. And so I just jump over and go. And to do that, you have to not be worried about what yesterday was. You got to let go. And there's things that you love. It's painful, but it's not a fracture that's going to hurt you, and it'll support you, and you'll be able to come back to those things. It doesn't mean everything's everything, man. And it's here forever, and we're timeless in this immortal soul of ours. And so in that way, I feel like, I just say, don't, to anybody, don't be scared to try. You got to stay in the try. It's when we get scared enough to go, I don't want to be in the try anymore because there's people that judge me, or there's people. Yeah, there are. And there's a lot of bad folks, and there's a lot of people that just want to play with you to see you quit if they can make you quit. And there's all the stuff. It's all there. But it's all the good stuff is there too. And if you don't quit, you never know. And or if you don't stay with it, you never know. And if you don't stay with it, you don't get stronger. And you don't get to see that your fears were a liar before. I spent a lot of time writing, and some of the stuff I write too is me as a little kid, and just trying to heal that, because there's fractures that are there that stay with you, and so then you go, it's going to be okay, and you did well, and this is and to work it all out of like what your psyche is to bring you the best empathy, strength, tenacity, whatever it is today that's going to serve me and my community better. And so that's the thing I would say, stay in the try. Try hard. A spectator, who gives a fuck about a spectator? Stay out of the stands. Get in the field, man. Be in the conversation. My daughter talks about imposter syndrome. And I go, you're in the conversation. You're doing the thing you're talking about. Show me the imposter. There isn't one, except that you don't think you've learned enough yet because you're under the idea that people are masters and have the totality of a modality in their mind and heart and body. No, there's very few folks that have that. We're just in the conversation. We're on the field in the conversation. And that's what I would say. Live in the field, man. And find your brothers and sisters there, and you're going to walk strong and faster than you ever thought you could.
So am I guessing that there could be a memoir on the way from Tait Fletcher?
I'll tell you this. I hope so. I wrote a book. I got like 7 chapters in, and then I got hurt. And then the subsequent post-concussive syndrome and suicidal ideations and brain treatment, like all the stuff since then has been tremendous. Even going to the grocery store was an impossible task for me. I would drive there. I mean, after I could drive 6 months or something down the road, I would drive, and then I would turn around and leave. And the couple times I'd get out, I'd walk to the door, and I'd try to go, and I can't go in there. That's too crazy. And I never knew what anxiety was before that. And so anyway, right now, even in this interview, it's weird to say, and I've done a lot in the last couple of years that this is surprising to people, but brain injury is tricky, and you come back in different times in different ways. And so that anxiety and pushing stuff out there has been hard for me. It's been hard to show up. And so I really do my best to do that. And my next thing will be to start my podcast again and start to express that way, in this land where everybody's got opinions and everybody's got how you ought to be thinking. It's like, I don't know how I'm thinking unless I talk it out in conversation. Yeah. So if I'm in the conversation, I'm in a real state of gratitude and appreciation, because everything that I'm saying, I'm not saying I'm right. It's just how I happen to be feeling about it right now. But I sure am open to other ideas and other perspectives. I love this idea that we can all hold other ideas and nobody has to be wrong, right? We got our perspectives that we've grown and looked into, and here we are. What's wrong about that? It's just a different thing. One doesn't negate the other. And I'd say that too. There's a lot more room to breathe than you think there is, kid.
I mean, you do obviously some amazing work. You support some amazing charities. I was watching the Instagram Live the other day with 50 for the Fallen, which is a veterans organization. And the one thing I like about the States is that they do so much for the veterans, which I think is fantastic, which they don't do as much. It's not as apparent in the UK for veterans. So it's quite nice to see the States and the organizations. I had a guy called Mark Geist on the show who was part of, I don't know if you've ever watched 13 Hours. The film. So Mark Geist was one of the guys it was based on. He was in Benghazi during the incident, and he got injured, and he runs an organization as well. But no, it's just fantastic, all the work that you're doing. You're very inspirational. I mean, literally, we've covered Mandalorian and a few other pieces, but literally, Tait, I could speak to you for hours, because literally you've done so much stuff, and I look forward to everything that you do in the future. And I will get my hands on some coffee, even if I've got to get it sent to a friend in the States, and do it that way.
I'll do whatever I can.
Do you know what? I'm determined to get my hands on some. But no, you've been brilliant. Thank you so much. I look forward to speaking to you in the future, and I hope that the Star Wars world keeps you in some way, form, maybe for the Bad Batch, or whatever they want to do in the future. You're a great man.
Thanks so much, Brian. It's a pleasure being here, and thanks to all the fans for watching. We'll see you guys now down the road around the bend.